The ballroom glowed with warm golden light, crystal chandeliers scattering it across tables dressed in white linen. I stood near the edge of the crowd, the stem of my champagne glass cool against my palm. My dress, emerald silk, clung to me just right, a quiet armor for the night. Dad was at the microphone, looking as proud and powerful as ever, his deep voice filling the room. I'd been to enough corporate dinners to know this script by heart, the thank yous, the jokes, the applause. But when he got to the part about family, something in my chest tightened. And as for my daughter, Claire, he paused just long enough for all eyes to swing toward me. I straightened my back, feeling the weight of 100 curious stares. She'll get nothing. A polite, startled laugh rippled through the room, like everyone thought it was a joke. My father's face told me it wasn't. I forced my lips into a calm, almost bored smile, the same one I'd practiced for years. Inside, my pulse pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. Before the silence could settle too heavily, another voice cut through the room, smooth, professional, carrying authority. "Actually," the man said, stepping forward, legal folder in hand, "that's not quite true." Every head turned toward him. Even my father's expression shifted, a flicker of confusion, maybe worry, before he masked it. And that's when I knew tonight was going to change everything. The last time I'd stood in a room full of my father's colleagues, I was 22, and everything about me screamed wrong to him. I'd just told him I wasn't taking the job he'd lined up for me at his firm. I didn't want to sit behind a desk in some corner office, proving my worth on his terms. I wanted to build something of my own, even if I didn't yet know exactly what. He'd stared at me across the mahogany dining table, his jaw set. "Claire, stop being childish. You're not cut out for this world on your own." I remember gripping the edge of my chair so hard my knuckles went white. "I'd rather fail on my own than succeed on your leash." The words hung in the air like smoke. My mother's fork clinked against her plate, and my brother looked away, as though pretending not to witness my rebellion would save him from the fallout. Dad's reply had been cold, final. "Then you get nothing. Don't come back here asking for help when it all falls apart." Something inside me cracked that night, but another part, the quiet, stubborn part, came alive. Later, I sat in my tiny apartment, tears streaming silently down my face. That's when I noticed the little silver locket my grandmother had given me before she passed. Inside was a tiny slip of paper with her handwriting. "Strength doesn't shout. It endures." I closed the locket in my fist and made myself a promise. I would endure. I would build a life so solid that one day, when they looked at me, they'd see more than the girl who walked away. The next morning, I packed up the last of my things, left my key on the counter, and stepped out of that house for good. I didn't have much, a couple $100 in my account, one suitcase and that locket, but I had something they didn't think I did, the will to start over. Starting over was not glamorous. I rented a studio apartment above a noisy laundromat, where the hum of washing machines became the soundtrack to my late-night tears and brainstorming sessions. During the day, I worked as a receptionist at a co-working space just to pay rent. But that job gave me something priceless: exposure. I watched entrepreneurs come and go, overhearing their pitches, their failures, their strategies. One day, I struck up a conversation with a woman named Linda, mid-40s, sharp navy blazer, but warm eyes. She ran a small but growing marketing agency and noticed how I stayed after hours, reading books on business and design. "You're hungry," she said one night, dropping a half-eaten muffin on my desk. "I like hungry people. Ever thought about learning copywriting?" I didn't even know what copywriting was at the time, but I said yes. She became my first mentor, teaching me the craft of persuasive writing, how to pitch, how to sell. It wasn't easy. I worked full-time, then stayed up until 2 a.m. building my skills, creating samples, pitching clients online. My first gig paid me $50, and I cried over it like it was $1 million. Month by month, things grew. I moved from tiny gigs to full campaigns, then to retainer clients. The first time I sent an invoice for $5,000, I sat staring at the number for 10 minutes, terrified they'd laugh. They didn't. They paid. 3 years in, I left my receptionist job and rented my own office, a one-room space with peeling paint and a wobbly chair, but it was mine. I never told my family how well I was doing. On social media, I posted generic coffee shop photos and vague captions like Monday Hustle. They thought I was barely surviving, maybe even struggling. And a part of me let them believe it. By year 5, I wasn't just freelancing, I owned a boutique agency with a small team. We had clients in tech, real estate, even fashion. I had savings, investments, and a quiet kind of pride that came from knowing I'd built every piece of it without anyone's help. Sometimes I'd catch sight of the locket around my neck in the bathroom mirror before a big meeting. I'd touch it and whisper to myself, endure. I wasn't just enduring anymore. I was thriving. And no one, not even my father, knew just how far I'd come. The ballroom seemed to hold its breath as the lawyer stepped forward. He was a calm, unshakable presence in a charcoal gray suit, holding a leather folder like a shield. "My name is Thomas Grant," he said, his voice carrying easily over the murmurs. "I represent Ms. Claire Bennett." I didn't move. I just kept my glass steady, even as heat rose in my chest. "Represent," my father repeated, his tone clipped. "What's this about?" Thomas opened the folder and withdrew a stack of documents. Per Ms. Bennett's instructions, we waited until tonight, until this very event, to disclose this information publicly. The room went utterly silent. The clinking of glasses stopped. Even the waitstaff froze. Thomas continued, "Claire is not here tonight, as just a guest. She is the majority shareholder of Bennett and Company's new marketing partner, Horizon Strategies. In fact," he glanced at me with a faint smile, "she is the owner and founder of the agency responsible for your company's most successful campaign last year." The words landed like thunder. People began whispering. I could feel the shift in the air, shock, curiosity, even admiration. My father's brows knit together as he processed it, his face paling slightly. "That's not possible," he said finally, almost to himself. I set down my champagne flute, the crystal ringing softly against the table. "It's very possible, Dad. I've been building Horizon for the last 7 years. You didn't know because you never asked." A ripple of gasps moved through the crowd. My brother's jaw dropped. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Thomas cleared his throat, bringing everyone back to the moment. "And that's not all. Tonight we also finalized the partnership agreement that gives Ms. Bennett partial ownership of the Bennett and Company branding division." The lawyer handed my father a pen. The sound of paper sliding across the table was the loudest thing in the room. My father didn't move. His eyes were fixed on me now, searching, calculating. For the first time in years, I saw something new there, not just disapproval or disappointment, but something closer to respect. Or maybe fear. I stepped closer, heels clicking against the polished floor. "You told me once I'd get nothing. You were right. I didn't get your money or your approval. But I got something better. I got my freedom. And I built something so strong. Your company now needs me." The words were steady, calm, but my hands were no longer shaking. For a long moment, no one said anything. Then someone at the back of the room began clapping. A slow, tentative sound that built into a wave. People were smiling at me, not with pity, but pride. I caught my father's gaze and held it. The power had shifted, and we both knew it. When the applause faded, I didn't sit back down. The room was still focused on me, and for once, I didn't shrink under the attention. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," I said, letting my voice carry but stay calm. "But I think it's time we talk about what comes next, not just for the company, but for this family." I turned to my father first. "Dad, I'm not asking for an apology tonight. I know you thought you were teaching me toughness by cutting me off, but I'm not that 22-year-old girl anymore. If we're going to work together, it has to be as equals. No dismissing my ideas, no cutting me out of decisions, because I'm your daughter. If you want Horizon to stay on board, you treat me like a partner, not a charity case." His mouth tightened, but he didn't argue. Then I looked at my brother, Michael. "You've been coasting, waiting for Dad to hand you everything. I'm not against helping you get your startup off the ground, but you need to put in real work. You'll have to present a plan, show me your numbers, and be willing to hear no. If I'm investing as a businesswoman, not as your safety net." Michael looked startled, then nodded slowly, like he hadn't expected me to even consider him. Finally, I turned to my mother, who was still clutching her glass like it was the only thing keeping her steady. "Mom, I'd like you to come see where I live. Really see my world, my office, my team, the life I've built. No more pretending I'm struggling so we can all avoid awkward conversations. I want a real relationship with you, not a polite holiday one." Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled faintly and nodded. I let the silence stretch for a moment before finishing. "I'm willing to help this family, to support it, even to grow what we've built together, but only if it's healthy. No more power games, no more control. We do this with respect, or we don't do it at all." It felt like dropping a stone into a still pond. The ripples were slow, but you could see them moving through the room. For the first time in years, I felt completely steady. This wasn't revenge. It was balance being restored. In the weeks that followed, things began to shift. My father didn't change overnight. He still barked orders on conference calls, still signed his emails with nothing but his initials. But he started looping me in on decisions, asking for my input, sometimes even taking it. The first time he called me partner in front of his board, I had to swallow hard to keep my voice steady when I replied. Michael surprised me most. He sent me a 20-page proposal for his startup, neatly formatted, with a clear revenue model. I stayed up all night making sure it was airtight, he admitted when we met over coffee. For the first time, I saw the fire in him I'd always wished he'd find. And my mother, she came to my office one Friday afternoon, carrying a bag of pastries. She wandered around the space, trailing her fingers over the polished wood desks and framed campaign posters, her eyes wide with pride. "I had no idea," she whispered. "I wish your grandmother could see this." I touched the silver locket at my throat, feeling the ridges of its design press into my palm. "She does," I said softly. That night, I stayed late at the office, sitting by the window as the city lights glittered below. I thought about the girl who once walked out of her father's house with nothing but a suitcase and a promise to herself. I kept that promise. As I turned off the lights and headed out, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time, it wasn't about proving them wrong, it was about living fully, freely on my own terms. And that, I realized, was worth more than anything my father could ever give me.